Hello, entrepreneurs, designers, digital nomads, and business gurus. Welcome to Circle Live, our internet talk show just for Squarespace Circle members. I'm Sam Z, your community events manager.
And I'm Sarah G, team lead for Squarespace Circle, and we have our colleague Taylor Legoy monitoring the chat with us today. Last month, we joined you live from our Dublin office to share our favorite moments from Circle Day 2024.
And featured in one of those clips is today's Circle Live guest. Omari Harebin of Squarespace Themes will join us later to discuss his new memoir, The Corporate Dropout. Sarah, what is the title of your memoir?
Okay, I've actually given this a lot of thought. If I had a memoir, or when I have a memoir, I'm going to call it In Good Company. The reasons are twofold. One, I feel like all I do these days is community building. So In Good Company is like me, the people I'm around, gathering people who are in good company with one another. And then the other is I have my, outside of Squarespace, my entrepreneurial journey. And so In Good Company is like also good company. You get it.
I love that. I think it makes perfect sense. And I can see you on the front cover, like just smiling and maybe in between some of the text with a really cool font. Have you thought about the font at all?
No, but it seems like you have.
Well, I was thinking like I don't know what this is called, but like a brush script or a chalk script, kind of like a little bit sketchy.
Yeah.
In Good Company, but like with some nice pastel colors to show your softer side.
Pastel. Wow.
Yeah.
Even today in the leather jacket.
I think the playing with the different extremes would be good for you.
Wow. Okay. Tell me about yours.
Mine?
What would your memoir be called?
Yeah. So my first memoir,
Sure. Of course.
as I plan to publish several, Harebrain.
Okay. Tell me more.
So there's really three meanings to this. The first is my hair has been a constant theme throughout my life. I started out as a kid with different kinds of hair, and then I ended up with curly hair, and I hated it, and I wanted to change it. And accepting my hair, I think, is part of my journey in loving myself and learning to accept myself. So the curly hair and rocking the curl, that's been just a huge part of my personal growth. Brain, just because I value intellect, intelligence, and that's something that I think has also been a part of accepting myself and not being afraid of my own intelligence and my own intellect. And just altogether, that word sort of, I love a harebrained scheme. I love something that comes out of the box. I love that something doesn't think the same way. So that's my first memoir. I have not given any thought to my third, fourth, or fifth memoirs.
Or the second.
Well, I have, but I won't reveal that yet.
Oh, you have to come back next month.
Yeah. But that's been fun, but we want to hear from you all, our Circle members in the chat. What's the title of your memoir? How would you encapsulate your professional experience so far into a few short, pithy words? Or if you already have a memoir in print, share a link with us in the chat. Tell us about the book cover. Tell us about the font. Anything that you have already planned out for your next published memoir. We'll be right back after this quick message from our sponsor. Hey Circle, are you a freelancer? Are you a creative professional? A lot of Circle members are. We want to tell you about a company putting freelancers like you front and center. It's called Collective. Collective is an all-in-one platform that helps businesses of one save thousands on their taxes every year and handles their business setup, bookkeeping, and taxes. The Circle team at Squarespace is partnering with Collective on November 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern for a freelancer-focused webinar on how to save a ton of money on your taxes. It's just an hour, it's totally free, and it'll give you all the strategies you need to keep more of what you earn. What creative professional doesn't need that? Sign up for the free webinar now on Squarespace's Circle Forum and join Collective's Circle of money-saving freelancers. Okay, Sarah, do we have any memoir titles pitched in the chat?
Yes, I have one from Jennifer that is Better Late Than Never. I'm so intrigued.
I'm very intrigued. I would definitely pick that off the shelf and read it.
Definitely, especially knowing Jennifer was a Circle member.
Absolutely. Well, Our guest today has written a memoir. Our guest today is Omari Harebin. Omari is one of our original Circle members. He's appeared twice on the stage at Circle Day, and through his Squarespace themes brand, he specializes in helping entrepreneurs build profitable businesses on Squarespace by leveraging everything the platform has to offer and more. Omari, welcome to Circle Live.
Hey, Sam. Thank you.
So obviously we love the title of your memoir, The Corporate Dropout. It's a really honest story, and I think everybody who is interested in becoming a pro Squarespace designer or an entrepreneur of any kind, anybody who's ever faced a low point in their career should read it. They will connect with your story, I think. In the book, you talk about a low point in your career. So we're just going to start right at the low point, and we're going to rise from there. You're married, you have a kid, but you left a stable career in engineering, and in the book, you're talking about how you had trouble paying rent. It's a really tough time for you. I want to know what made you leave a stable career?
So it was a couple of factors. One, I already had this desire to do my own thing. It had been there for a long time. And I'd always just put that thing on the side because I didn't know how to make that thing my real thing. So I was always doing my thing on the side, secretly hoping that it would take off, that like something miraculous would happen and I would be picked out of the herd and like, exalted on high. But that never happened. And so as I'm trying to like figure that out, I end up in some legal trouble, and I end up in a DUI situation, which meant that I wouldn't be able to get to work anymore, basically. And I would kind of I basically lost all my esteem, right? It's like I felt like a terrible person, if anyone found out about this thing. So it was like, how do I not get found out about this bad thing that just happened to me, keep my job? And I just went through a really tough process of trying to figure that out. But as I'm trying to figure that out, I also find out I'm becoming a dad. So that's the real catalyst where it's like, okay, I'm now bringing another life into the world in the midst of this kind of chaos. Maybe this is my chance. Maybe this is my opportunity to be reborn, if you will. And that is where I poured all of my energy into, was like, all right, if I'm going to become a dad and if there's a new life coming into the world, then that means that I have to like create something new. Like I have to now become the person that I want to see. And that's like a cliche saying, right? But like for my son, I wanted my son to grow up and to see who you guys are talking to today. So that's what made me have to take the leap, right? It wasn't like oh, I've got a wonderful idea, or like I really believe in my side thing. Because even though I believed in it, I was hoping that someone would believe more and would see what I believed. And that was a really tricky thing to kind of unravel. But that's what I hope to unravel in this memoir.
And it unravel and re-ravel, you did. I totally connect with that part of your story. I've had low points in my life. I've been let go from jobs. I have been unemployed for long periods of time. I have lived at home with my parents, which is not in itself a failing, but at the time for me specifically, it was very much. And you sort of feel like in this impossible situation, but I'm so glad that you brought that up, that's that pressure cooker situation that, when the pressure is on, it almost forces you to turn it around. You have to sort of ask yourself those tough questions. So I'm quoting from your book now, but I think this is really brilliant. The question that you ask yourself in your book is, what's the one thing that you can do right now that you love, that you're good at, and that people would pay for? And the answer to that question, of course, was, I'll let you finish it.
Squarespace.
Yeah. So tell us about that turnaround.
So my side business was photography and videography, and so naturally you need a portfolio. So I created mine on Squarespace because at the time the alternatives were okay, but Squarespace felt like I could do a little bit more than just my portfolio. But I didn't think that anyone would pay me to build a website for them on Squarespace, but I still kept it in my back pocket just in case. I'm like, I'm going to quit my job. I need a couple ways to make money. on that short list was already photography, videography, tutoring, and then websites, and obviously Squarespace being the platform. But it wasn't until like maybe like 18 months into my freelance journey that I reached that point where it was like, let me just focus on Squarespace, because I just been trying to do everything. And I had a little bit of success freelancing with the platform, getting leads via the directory. But I also got overwhelmed with, code that I didn't know how to figure out, and trying to figure out my pricing. And I felt like, I should be pricing myself at a premium, but then no one got in touch with me. And it was just this like constant like tug and pull of like, how do I make this work? As a solo independent person trying to make a living on the internet.
You talked about how you pivoted a couple times, even within your journey of using Squarespace. Can you walk us through each of those pivots?
Yeah. So the first thing is like, okay, I got accepted to the specialist directory, which is now Marketplace. And it was July 2014. I was sitting on the toilet, scrolling through my email, and I was like, yes, like this is it. This is gonna like change everything, because I was dependent on my local network for leads and for contacts, and I'd kind of burnt out of that. It wasn't producing anything. So I was like, all right, now I have some credibility. There's like a source for work to like find me. And that was cool until I quickly ended up with like projects that I couldn't complete because they wanted a gallery style from one template and some other feature from another template, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could just like copy the code and like put it together. But it didn't work out like that. So I try to hire freelancers to help me, and it was just not working out for me. So I kind of semi abandoned it for a while, and just kept trying other things. Like at one point I was like making flyers for events, and then I'm like shooting video at other events, then I'm tutoring at Saturday mornings at a high school. So I was kind of just all over the place when a friend of mine is like, yo, if you could just do one thing, and the one thing was Squarespace. And so I decided that, okay, let me apply all of this stuff I've been learning. Like when you go off on your own, you start watching webinars like this all the time. You start like signing up for email lists all the time. Like anything that is like a little hope or like a glimmer that feels in alignment with you, or even if it's not in alignment, I was just trying to figure out the tricks. Like, how the hell are they doing this stuff? So I'm like, all right, let me apply what I'm learning to like this now that I have a niche. Let me apply some stuff. And so one of those things was I need a product. I need a digital product. But I also need like a marketing system that's going to allow me to like grow. So it was very simple. It was like, all right, I'm going to sell templates because there's templates everywhere else on the internet for every other platform. And even though it's not technically possible, there's got to be a possibility in there some way. And even if there's not, there's definitely a future demand, because naturally people want to customize things. They want to make things their own. And so I just saw that this, third party ecosystem would one day develop. So I wanted to be there when it did. So that was the kind of like the idea behind SQSP themes. And I remember I called my friend. I'm like, yo, I got it. Squarespace themes. And he's like, cool, man. And I'm in the living room by myself, like pacing back and forth. And that was the beginning of SQSP themes. But then I ran into the other problem, which was I'm not a designer like that. Meaning like I can get things done for myself, but if I have to get it done for a blind audience, then my standard goes really high. And I'm never able to meet that standard, or I wasn't able to. So that was like an immediate setback where it's like, all right, I've got this cool idea, but I don't have the skills. It's not technically possible. I'm trying to find designers who believe in it, but they're like, templates for Squarespace, what? So I quickly pivoted to just customizing, templates for people, right? Like they sign up for Squarespace, they want to add something. That was the thing that I saw as being like a constant. It's the thing I had a problem with the year before, but I'm like, if this is the thing that keeps happening, at least let me upskill a little bit. So I learned some CSS. I learned enough like to be able to now deliver on what I couldn't deliver on previously. And that kept me alive for a bit until I'm like, I'm really not that good at this. I really want to be marketing all the time, but I still need a product. I don't have a product. I'm trying to do this service on my own. It's not working out. So I just gave it up again. So that's the second, that was 2 times now, if you're counting, that I like gave up this like Squarespace freelancing thing. And then I had my second child, my daughter. And after she was born, I was like, I have to figure something. I still have to figure something out. I'm still not like producing out here. So I gave Squarespace another try. And it was kind of like a serendipitous moment. And these moments happen every so often where I really needed like a certain amount of money in order to like, you know, pay my bills and like not go to eviction court. And but I was like calm about it. I was very just relaxed. I was like, you know what? Things have always worked out in the past. I've had enough miraculous things show up where I'm just going to be cool. Like, I'm just going to be calm. And I went inside and I opened up my email, and there's a guy who needs a website for his nonprofit, or the nonprofit he's on a board on. And his big priority was to like impress the founder of the nonprofit. And so he was already set on how much he wanted to pay for the website. And how much he wanted to pay was exactly how much I needed. So I was like, well, there we go. I'm back in the game. But this time around, I'm like, all right, I have to kind of fix the mistakes I made previously, right? I already at this point had a Facebook community that kind of like was a bridge for me to just kind of stay, I guess, relevant, or keep a presence. And so I'm like, all right, what do I need to do? And the whole thing for me was a SEO and content case study from the beginning. That's what I really wanted to prove on, was that you can create searchable content, and that will be enough to kind of, build an online business. So to do that, I just started documenting all of the problems that I ran into with the clients that I started taking on from that point. Now, I had done that before, but now I was doing it like more earnestly. Now it was like, no, this is the way. It's very simple, it's basic, but every project that you get, even though it's a small tweak or customization, you can just share that. And there's going to be other people looking for that. So that quickly got my traffic off the ground. And within a couple of months, I try to hire someone again, because I'm like, I'm still not good at this like code thing. My code is messy. There's like lots of lines. It's crazy. So I found a guy, and he just like cleaned up all my code, did it really quickly. I was taking days on stuff that really should take like 20 minutes. So that really messes up like your pricing. If you're trying to like charge by the hour, you don't feel good for charging someone because you're ignorant, and then at the same time you have to like make up for your ignorance. So this allowed me to make up for my ignorance pretty quickly, and still using that same formula of like, all right, the problems that we run into, that's content. And now the solutions that we're creating, because now I can trust those solutions because they're not coming from me, those are products. So it's a very simple formula, right? Problems to content and solutions to products. And that's kind of the very simple flywheel, content flywheel, if you will. And that, we've been going ever since.
I love that. Yeah, just to voice over that again so that it's clear for people. In the memoir, you call it Turning Problems into Content. Maybe that's the title of your second memoir. I don't know. But turning problems into content. I mean, you talk about this, that that there's a whole system that you have set up. And that was also the topic of your Circle Day 2024 talk. I'm curious, could you talk about why you think that works so well?
Yeah, so I'm a searcher, like I'm a seeker, right? So, and I will go very deep. I'll often go places that haven't been touched before, on the internet at least. And so I'm always, every once in a while, I'll search for a solution to a problem, and I won't find anything. There'll just be a hole in the internet for this problem that I have. And if I can find a solution, then I'll try my best to fill that hole. It's as simple as that. And because that hole exists, I trust that I'm not the only one searching. There's 8 billion people on the planet. There's been plenty of times where I've imagined something, and then later on, thousands of people imagine it. So it's like, I'm not afraid of being the only one. Right? Meaning I'm not afraid of finding a problem that no one cares about, but like still invest in my time and energy in it, simply because I care about like the future version of me who's going to be looking for that same thing. And that's who I'm always trying to fulfill for.
Hmm. When you talked about foreseeing the template marketplace, the templates on Squarespace existing, it sounds like you were pretty early to people doing that. When you were trying to tell people about it, how did they kind of react?
There was one guy who was excited, but it just, I couldn't pay him to like do anything, right? So there was a certain amount of like partnership that would have been necessary to make it work. And then other people just didn't respond to any of my posts about like, hey, do you want to make design Squarespace templates? Nowadays it's easy, but those days it just wasn't a thing.
I wonder if people look back on those conversations and they're like, wow, did I miss the next insert major tech company here? You were cutting edge.
I have a few things that fall into that category, but I'm not going to mention them. But yeah, that's what I mean by just trusting when you are alone in an idea, because you're not alone in the world. And so chances are someone else may have had it before, but you've just not found their breadcrumbs. And so for me, it's like a game of just like, okay, how do I make sure that I'm leaving behind some kind of signal that this idea has been explored, or this problem has been uncovered, and there's something here. And it's not a perfect thing, but when I go back to basics, that's what I go back to. So at any given point in time, in a day, in a 24-hour span, I'm running into some kind of a problem. And most of the time I'm not sharing it, but as often as I can, I know that I'm, making a small investment in the future.
Where do you find that it's really effective to share these? I know you have a newsletter. Are you starting with your newsletter, and then where else are you sharing these?
Yeah, so newsletter is the most impactful. Email is most impactful for like people clicking on a link, right? Like if I share something in a Facebook group, people aren't clicking out. Like you're not scrolling on Facebook to go somewhere else. You're scrolling to like check out some conversation or just something there. But with email, you kind of hoping to like discover something, hopefully, that someone sends you that now sends you on like a cool little discovery. So I find email is most efficient for if you want to send someone somewhere. But for conversation, for insights, for things you can't discover anywhere else, that's where community is good, because it gives people a reason to come back. And then Google is a great search engine, but there's plenty of others that are coming up, where that's where the blog and the website content comes in. So there's always like a different place where different things do grow differently.
Yeah, so newsletter for getting your message out there and speaking directly to your audience, and then make sure that it's on your blog and other social media outlets for SEO purposes.
And then podcasts for stories. So I find that like the podcast is very interesting, because I'll publish a new episode and I'll see a bunch of listens. But if I share that same podcast to a newsletter, it's not coming from the newsletter. So it's there's a certain like embedded experience that people have depending on the channel that they prefer, so it's always an evolving thing, but I try to think about it and consider it. So like this kind of format I love, because we get to go deep and we get to like tell stories and explore things that I can't sit down and like write a blog post about this. That's why I had to do the memoir, because it's like I've told this story plenty of times. Like it started as a story that I was trying to tell, and then it ended as a story that I finally told. So it's yeah. I forgot how we got there, but that's where we at.
Sometimes the story just trails off, like a 1970s doo-wop song, it just fades, right?
Yeah.
But I do want to go deep on this one area, something that certainly interests me in your memoir, this idea of sustainability through passion. You also talked about this on the stage at Circle Day 2024. I think people go into business partially to make money, but also, as you talk about in your memoir, you want to find an area that you're passionate about. Like, you need to find something that you can actually feel good about going to work to do.
Mm-hmm.
You seem to be like really proud of of what you're doing, and reading your memoir, I'm really proud of you. I mean, that's one of the great things about reading your memoir is I feel like I know you better than I've ever known you, and I get to be there along with the journey, and I'm proud of you. Can I say that? Is that allowed?
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah,
for sure. But let's talk about this passion. Let's talk about this passion, because there's moments in building your business that I'm sure you don't feel so passionate about. You talk about some of those in the book. I'm sure you weren't passionate, for instance, about knowing, you couldn't get to work. I'm sure you weren't passionate about knowing that you couldn't pay rent. In moments like these, do you feel doubts about your passion?
Yeah. So what I learned and what kind of evolved over this experience is that those moments were when I felt like my story was really being written, because I didn't have any choice in those moments, but then I did have a choice, right? So meaning, when I'm sitting in a cell, in a holding cell, like I didn't have I mean, I had a choice, but it's like, okay, what do I do now? Because at some point in time, I'll have to look back on this story that I'm living in. And so I do have a choice. I can decide what I'm going to make out of this moment. And if I'm an artist and if I'm a musician, then I have to make a song. So I often channeled those moments into music, and into capturing however I could, whether it was in a journal or hitting record on the camera, or whatever I could do. To me, that's when I was really writing the story. So everything else was me dreaming of what I desired. It's like me having these fantasies, but then reality is showing me something different. And I have to be honest about the reality in the future. I might not have been able to be honest in the present, but I knew that in the future, the end goal is to be able to be honest and transparent in this lived experience that I was struggling with. And the only way I could do that would be to capture as much of it as I possibly could, in whatever medium and ways that I could. So that's the passion, is the meta story, and trying to uncover and unpack that, is where my passion has always been. And that's what I'm anchored on, right? Everything else can pass away, right? At some point in time, we'll have intelligence to create the templates, right? I'm not fixated on like the momentary things. I'm fixated on the thing that is timeless and will transcend everything, because that's a place that I've always been able to find security and peace and rest.
I love that. That's really beautiful. I'm thinking about the story that you were telling us earlier, where you did Squarespace and then you left it, and then you did Squarespace again, and then you left it again, and obviously now you've been back and have been investing in Squarespace for a long time. I'm curious kind of like what keeps you sustained and going on the platform and in the Squarespace ecosystem now.
It's funny because the thing that keeps me going is really the same thing that got me started, right? So I still have a website, and I'm still trying to tell a story with that website. I'm still trying to, well, not trying to anymore. It's here, right? I need in the beginning, I need as a creative, as an artist, I needed a product, right? And I had a service that I could sell and offer, but I always wanted to be able to point people back to a product, and I didn't have a product. So it was a very long journey of getting to this product right here, a physical one, a digital journey to a physical product. And so that's where the digital alchemy comes in of like, okay, well, how do I take my physical experience, or how do I take whatever experiences I'm having and transmute that into some kind of digital product to keep me going, right? To sustain me. And I run every time I open up Squarespace to like do something on my website, I have to go search Google for something. And whenever I don't find whenever I'm like expecting some expert to have already covered something and they're not, I'm like, what the heck, guys? Like, what's going on? Like, no one's out here like exploring this like problem that people have been having for a few years. Like, all right, because it's now my problem, because the only reason I searched for it is because I was struggling with it. I have to solve it for myself, but it's also a duty now to like solve it for whoever else. So I'll give you a really practical example. Um, I need to have these print on demand, and I can go through Amazon, but it would be cool to do it through my Squarespace website. All right, there's a couple of print on demand suppliers who have APIs that I could connect with the Squarespace API, and okay, I might not be the super coder still, but we do have like super AI brains that I've been using now, and it's amazing. And I can come up with a prototype for myself. And if there's enough people who are interested and want it, cool. If Squarespace says, "Oh yeah, we should probably partner with that company now," cool, whatever. But I still have my own problem that I need to figure out, and I'm gonna figure it out. And that's kind of what keeps me going, because it's not necessarily that solving that problem is going to be super profitable in the present. I think that's something that I've had to just live with. But it's not about present profitability. It's about just, I don't know, man, just leaving something behind. Sharing and leaving some, because I think what's been on my heart a lot lately is that we all have so much. Like, we all have an abundance of experiences and just like insights and learn things that we keep to ourselves, honestly, because we feel like, oh, there's not anyone who cares about this like I care about it. And in your present reality, that might be true. But the wonderful thing about the internet is it connects all of these other realities so that we can have this conversation, so that we can create these other networks, so that people can, discover what it is that is on their heart and minds, and want to explore.
Well, Omari, we are not going to leave you behind. We are going to take a quick ad break, though.
Cool.
But we will be back with you in just a moment. Audience, if you have any questions for Omari, now is your time. Dip into this wisdom. Ask him about digital alchemy. Ask him about turning your problems into content. Ask him about any of the things that we've talked about already. Put those in the chat, and we will be back with Omari in just a little bit. As always, today's Circle Live is brought to you by the Circle Referral Payment Benefit. In case you missed the announcement at Circle Day, the CRPB is now available everywhere. Every state, every country, every Circle member can earn $200 for referring a new annual commerce website, or $300 for a new annual digital product pro plan. You can also earn by referring new annual Acuity scheduling subscriptions and new email campaign subscriptions. Fans of the CRPB say it is one of the easiest partner programs to sign up for. You can start earning commissions by talking to your clients about the Squarespace products that help them grow their businesses. To sign up for the Circle Referral Payment Benefit right now and start working toward the 4 subscription unlock threshold, visit support.squarespace.com and search Circle Referral now. So while we wait for some more questions to come through the chat, I hope it's okay if we ask you some more of our questions, Omari. Is that all right?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
So you've referenced this concept of digital alchemy. For anybody who hasn't seen your short talk at Circle Day 2024, that's exactly what it's talking about. But could you give us just the a couple minute version of what is digital alchemy?
Yeah, it's a kind of like what I just described, a very simple process for turning your problems into content, and then the solutions that you come up with in response to those problems, turning those into products. And you can, it, it it's a, I've been thinking a lot about it, obviously, but it's a compounding thing. I think a lot of times there's an expectation that everything you do, or you have to have this one thing that just takes off. And for me, it's about having a practice that allows you to continually have these seeds, right? Like you're continually investing in yourself, like in the direction of your own growth, but you're doing so in a way that other people could benefit. So the question that's always like running through my mind when I'm going on a quest or when I'm finding something is who else can benefit? And that's what I've kind of built my whole Squarespace business around, is just there's so many things to explore. Um, each one of those things, who else could benefit? And creating a place for you to continually share those things. That's what I think email newsletters are good for. Any like any any kind of a community that you can create, where you're leading from the middle, if you will, where it's like you're not the guy on stage per se, but you're the person in the audience who's having the same problem, and hey, let's talk about it.
Yeah, they often talk about this in writing. I spent a lot of time in writing circles, and a lot of what people say is, you may think you're the only one who feels this way, but write about the thing that you think you're alone in, because that is there's going to be somebody out there who connects directly to it. I think that actually leads pretty well into the question we have from a commenter, Sarah.
Yes. Asia earlier had commented that your quote, "Trust when you're alone," an idea resonated. Omar, how do you know when you have an idea that you feel alone in, if you're like on the cutting edge of something or if it's just not a good idea?
I just Google it like everyone else, and if I find someone has already explored it, or they explored it a long time ago and they haven't picked it back up, I'm like, all right, we can keep at this, so to speak. So I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah, I Google it, and if I don't find anything, then to me that's usually a cool signal. It means that I'm at the edge of the universe, and there's a potential here to like expand the universe, which is, you don't get that opportunity all the time, but the closer you stay at that edge, the more opportunities you find.
What's something you've Googled recently and you didn't find any results for it, and then it turned into something?
It was like something about like rich dad, something. It was like a 3-word combination that you would expect to find. So for me as a creative, it's always about like, you get these word combos and you're like, oh, who else has like put these two ideas together? And I remember a long time ago, I had one, there's an album I was making called Manifestations of Grandeur. And when I Googled it, I didn't find anything. But when I Googled Google Books, which was a deeper archive, I found like content from like the 1860s. And I was like, ooh, I like this. No one's picked this up for 150 years. Let me pick it back up. And shortly after, someone reached out to me and they were like, yeah, I was Googling Manifestations of Grandeur and I found your album. And it was kind of in alignment with this project he was working on. So that's just a small example of like, just whatever creative ideas come to mind. I just Google them, and I enjoy when I don't find anything.
I'm kind of like obsessed with the idea that there's just like one swirling pot of ideas that just like goes back infinitely in time, and you can just like pluck one out and be like, that's what I'm going to work on now. I feel like I've never thought about that.
Yeah, dream time. It just drop. Everything is anytime an idea drops in your mind or whatever, that's a very like sacred experience. And without the internet, we wouldn't know, or we could, but it's a different conversation. But without the internet, we wouldn't know who else has had that idea drop in their mind. So I like that kind of stuff. I don't know who else like
I like it.
getting downloads into your consciousness and then exploring the digital consciousness to see who's made uploads, right? So
Mm.
that's the cycle, right? You get downloads from the other realm and then you upload what you've downloaded to the internet. And hopefully other people can then download it from the internet and that feeds their own spiritual cycle, if you will, kind of like precipitation and condensation, and get their own flow going with the cloud.
Yeah. We have a question from Haley that says, do you still work with clients to build websites? If so, what % of your income is from client work versus templates and plugins?
Yeah, so great question. I never got the client thing going. Like it just never was a profitable endeavor for me. So I was always I started out not trying to do that, but having to do that just to get by. So as soon as the plugins kind of reached a certain tipping point, I was just all in. It was like, all right, perfect. I now have a product that I can market and essentially hire myself. Like that's how I look at all of like the growth transitions. It's like, okay, if I was going to hire myself to do what's needed next, what would I do? And so that's what I did. I hired myself because I was trying to, I was always trying to find people. When you're freelancing, you're trying to convince people like, yeah, hire me to do your thing, and it's like, I didn't like that because it always put me on this qualification thing of like, I have to
Mm.
qualify myself. And because I was dealing with my own internal, unqualities that I wanted to unqualify myself for, it just felt like I was always, underperforming because I wasn't 100% honest about what I really wanted to do. So it's like if I took on a project that I I just needed the money or something, I didn't have any other intrinsic need or motivation, then it was just a constant like derailment, So 0%. So and that's the other side of that is for a period of time I felt a little bit guilty about that as well because I'm in a market where people build websites, and it's like, oh, I'm not really doing that. But yeah, there you go.
Do we have
The,
time?
the imposter thing can catch you in all
Totally.
sorts of ways.
Absolutely. I think we have time for a couple more questions.
Okay, great. Question from Chris that says, what are your thoughts on niching down in a web design business or business adjacent? And do you have any tips finding a niche?
Yeah, so I think the niche finding is actually like a retrospective process, meaning you have to just move forward with what is coming to you, but move forward in a way where you are being honest and in alignment with what's come, where it's like, is this a big yes for me? Okay, cool. Is this another big yes? You have 3 projects that are big yeses. Now look back over those 3 projects and say, okay, what's the common thread here? Are they all in the same industry, or are they all the same type of, like, what's the thing that connects these projects that I've been excited about for the past 6 months? And once you find that thread, now you've got your niche, and you can kind of thread that through your future projects, right? So it's like, cool, if this particular thing is the thing that makes me really say yes to these projects, now your brain can like look out into the world, and you're more likely to find other opportunities that are in alignment with that.
Mm.
And that's how I would advise on finding a niche, is to move forward honestly, passionately, till you're lit up significantly, for at least 3 projects, and then look back at what those 3 projects had in common. And you've got, you can go through forward to your next 3 with something solid.
Love that.
Talking to you is like that meme of the brain that's like just the brain and then slowly exploding, and like that's 3 projects and it just goes out into the universe. That's beautiful. There was another comment that I just thought was cool. Jennifer was relating to your idea of how your own unique solution may have a common problem. I think that's similar to what you were saying before about, turning your problems into content. Any more thoughts on that strain of thought?
Yeah, I love that because I've been in search of a common problem because that's where you make the most revenue is unique solutions to common problems. And a common problem is, well, how do you make money on the internet? And I swam through an ocean of, solutions to that problem. And none of them really felt good to me or was in a complete alignment with me until I got to the other end of the ocean. And I looked at how I got across it. And I said, oh, that's my unique solution. So there you go.
Oh, Omari, it's been so great. Talking to you, like I said, brain explosion, a lot of really great ideas percolating here about, finding your own unique problem to a solution, Googling for the thing and not feeling alone, feeling like empowered by that, being the only person who's got that idea, and turning your content into problems, turning your solutions, or turning your problems into content and your solutions into products is another takeaway. I think finding your passion in a way that's sustainable for you, not being set back, you seeing your low point actually as an opportunity to ask yourself those tough questions. Omari, we're at the end of our discussion, but I just want to say, this has been so wonderful to have you. I'm so glad that we were able to get you finally on Circle Live today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great time sharing with y'all.
Fantastic. Thank you. We will see you on the forum. Before we go, everybody, I have a quick announcement. We are looking for your event pitches. We're putting together our 2025 event schedule right now for the Circle community. If you have an idea for an episode of Circle Live or a workshop for Circle Learn, or any other ideas for events, we want to hear from you. Fill out the form that Taylor is sharing in the chat right now, and we will be accepting your pitches through all of November. You can actually fill out that form anytime, but November is when we're going to be actively looking at pitches. So that is all for today's show. Thank you for joining us live. To join the after party, that's right, there's an after party. It's online. Simply click the link to open the session on the left-hand sidebar, or Taylor is also sharing the link right now in the chat, so you can chat with us a little bit more. Until next Circle Live, this is Sam Z.
And I'm Sarah G.
Reminding you to try anchor links so you don't get lost at CSS.
Bye, everybody.